Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Inspiring the Flock Season 2. It's going to look a little bit different this semester. While I chose to live on campus, Ainsley chose to learn remotely. So we had to rethink our typical format of the show. However, we will be continuing Inspiring the Flock, Zoom edition, this semester.
We know that these times can look a little bit different for everyone, and it can be really difficult to find optimism in a year that has had its own set of challenges. But we want to continue the conversation of how you can inspire the flock, whether that's from home or campus.
And again, we are so lucky to have some new faces joining us today. First off, we have campus celebrity Terri Dennehy, an assistant professor of occupational therapy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am fortunate enough to have Terri as the professor for my health and wellness class, and she is all things good. She is encouraging and supportive in all capacities. We really couldn't have asked for somebody better to join our show today.
Yes, again, thank you. And lastly, we have our own very producer for season 2, Emma Mesko. Emma is the glue that holds this whole team together, me, and we couldn't have asked for a better person to join us today.
Thanks, guys.
Today, we're going to be talking about self-care in the age of the coronavirus. And no, we're not going to be talking about face masks and blasting John Mayer, but really diving into what it looks like to be well in a time where our lives are completely flipped. So Terri is somebody that is really intuitive about what she needs to be well. And I'm just really curious, how have you been practicing socially distant self-care these past few months?
That's a really good question. And so many things, as you all know, are out of our control right now, right? So any opportunity that we can take to really foster our own self-care, the things that really nurture our souls and feed us, as individuals is really important to do. Self-care is one of those things that's highly personal, right? So what might be a good thing for me might not necessarily work for you, Ainsley. So I happen to be an only child myself. And so a lot of the things that I do for my own self-care, I have always tended to kind of do sort of on my own. I'm really into mindful meditation. And so I take time to do that each day, generally before bed. I love a good guided app, right, for those types of activities. So I appreciate that. I spend a lot of time in nature. As you all know, in March, of course, we all got sent home. I have a son who's a junior in college, and so he came home also. And so he and I love to be outside, and we would take a lot of hikes on the Conewago Trail, which is right here in town. And it's pretty easy to be socially distanced and safe on the trail also. There's a few bike riders and so forth, but the trick is finding something that really you love and really inspires and feeds you, because it's really important that you take care of yourself. I always like to share that metaphor. You know how when you're on a plane and if you need the oxygen mask, it comes down. They always tell you put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then help others. So, as students and you guys are under a lot of rigor just normally, it's really important to take care of yourselves so that you can serve others well.
I love that example that you just shared with us. I haven't heard that before, but that was just a really beautiful way of putting it. I've also been trying to get out in nature a lot. I go to the beach frequently or go on walks because it's really easy to get stuck inside, like taking Zoom classes, especially since I'm home this semester. But I've really been forcing myself to get outside every single day, whether that's like going on a walk or exercising or bringing my notebooks outside. So I'm not just like sitting in the same place all day.
Yeah, it's really important. I didn't notice, and you would think that I would have been a little bit more self-aware, but from March until about the middle of the summer, when I was working and sitting all day for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, it catches up. And it's not good for your health to be doing that. It's bad for your eyesight. It's bad for your muscles. It's bad for your stamina. It's bad for my waistline. It's bad for so many things. So I've been trying to also just incorporate things like stretching, right? In the middle of a day, make sure you're hydrating, make sure you're taking breaks to get nutritional meals, and really, again, taking time to think about health and wellness.
Absolutely. I think it's so easy, like since we sit all day in these classes and these meetings, to really force yourself not into like a mundane routine, but like a good routine. So that means like stretching or like reminding yourself to drink water and like really implementing those good things throughout your day, so it doesn't just become so mundane.
For sure.
I practice a lot of socially distanced self-care, actually using essential oils. That's like kind of me and Terry's thing. That's one of the things we bonded over. Like one of my favorites now is called Gratitude by Arbonne that our lovely Terry actually gifted me. um, it's very calming and very relaxing. And it's nice to just kind of come in, turn off my lights, turn on my fun little string lights, and just sit in my bed and just take in the oil because it calms me down. It's very helpful.
And you use a diffuser in your room with those oils, right, Emma?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So many of the options like that, like the oils, for example, can have different effects on your central nervous system, right? They say lavender has a calming effect. I use peppermint in my own office. A lot of students will come into the OT suite and they'll say, it smells like a spa in here. It's wonderful. But I use peppermint because it's alerting for me. During the course of any given day, you come up there and you can smell it. So again, we have the ability to impact our central nervous system, whether it's through essential oils, whether it's through breathing techniques. Even something as simple as breathing can have a huge impact on how calm we feel or how alerted we feel. So it's really neat to know that with just a few simple techniques, we can really impact how we feel in any given moment.
Absolutely. I have also been practicing like self-affirmations in the morning and at night, just because I don't talk to a lot of people outside of class. So it's really beneficial just to affirm myself that even though life looks a little bit different than how it typically is right now, continuing to affirm myself in like many different categories of life.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I would add to that too. One practice that we do in our health and wellness class is I have my students write a gratitude journal. And we do it pretty much from day one. And I know that maybe it seems like an odd time, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic, for Pete's sakes. And people may say, what is there truly to be grateful for? But every day there are small blessings. And there's been a lot of research that shows that if we can start our day or end our day with a heart of gratitude, and find the good in the world that exists each day, it really has a huge impact on our stress levels. Many things we can't control, that's something simple that we can control every day. I was walking to school the other day to teach, and I almost squished, it caused me an anxiety attack, but I almost squished a praying mantis that was crossing the sidewalk, and I stopped and I picked it up and I moved it, and it was just such a miracle because it's not something you see every day. So just kind of reveling in those small joys and simple pleasures every day can really help to sort of reframe our thinking, right? You turn the news on, you listen to the radio, and a lot of our senses are assaulted with the realities, unfortunately, that are coming. You know, is there a vaccine? When will the vaccine be out? There are a lot of political things right now. There's a lot of unrest in the world, in many ways, shapes, and forms. And so that's one simple way to kind of bring it back to the here and now, and your own existence in your own space in the world.
I have a question for you, Terry. When it comes to those like going out on walks, for me, it was around my neighborhood, local state parks, even Lake Placida. Is there a calming effect with the sort of just natural sounds that can the audio sort of auditory, can that like play any effect? Just like the breathing in those scents, kind of like, is there any sort of effect there?
Yes. So it was a great question. And thank you for that. So many of the anchors that we can actually use to pull us into a present moment are very sensory based, right? So I walk with a lot of intention when I'm being mindful in my walking practice. And so sometimes I'll actually walk with an intention in mind. So for a while, I was sort of contemplating the concept of love and acceptance. And the strangest thing happened on Fridays when I would walk. I would always take my phone with me, and not to text or email or pick up calls, but I would use the camera on it. And as I'm thinking of these intentions of love, images would show up. Like there would be leaves on the ground that were in the shape of a heart. The inside of a walnut was the perfect shape of a heart. A scar on a tree was the perfect shape of a heart. It was crazy to me how many of these love symbols were coming to me when I took time to be really mindful. There's also a stream that I pass, and so I would audio tape. Running water is a thing that really calms me. So Ainsley was talking about the ocean. I love the ocean. I tape that on my phone. So yeah, audio can really be a source of calmness and security. And again, sometimes when I get really busy and I forget and I'm in the kind of the whirlwind that is my life, I'll stop and I'll play that audio. And it is incredible how it literally takes a minute to bring me back, to center myself, and then I can move calmly, proactively, and intentionally forward in doing what I have to do. So that was a really great question.
Yeah. I was going to say, for me, it could be as simple as, I've actually went back and forth and contemplated, should I go with natural sounds or should I go with something that's artificial, sort of like, music from like my favorite country singers. And for me, that is my escape. Is I listen to more of my like songs, and then those kind of songs really take me back and sort of make me feel as if like it's just sort of me walking kind of a thing, but I try to balance it as well, because I know how important it is to just listen to the outdoors without any music. But I think walking itself is just an amazing practice, especially during a time as dark as it is now.
Yeah, and honestly, you bring up another good point in that there's really no right or wrong way to do this, right? I think we need to become more self-aware. Like our bodies tell us what we need, right? We need hydration, we take a drink. We know when we need to calm ourselves. We know when we need to alert ourselves. And so I think that piece of being self-aware and knowing what you need in the moment is really where it all begins. And then playing your favorite songs. If that's what's speaking to you and can minister to you in that moment, then that's what you use and that's what you need. So there's so many different techniques that you can use to actually center and be present in any moment.
Yeah. Have you, Terri, I know for me, when it comes to creating boundaries for for not only myself, but for others, the first thing was going to be politics. That was one thing that I was determined about a year ago that I wasn't going to let overtake my well-being during this dark time, this COVID-19 time. And it's something I wanted to communicate to other people, that just because, we're enclosed in a house, especially as it gets colder and people don't want to go outside, I feel like a lot of families are absorbed to the television, to a few shows that are just nonstop 24/7 talking about what's going on. And it's not to downplay the importance of this upcoming election, but it's just to let people know that the moment, for every second you take away from that TV, you have a chance to clear your mind of all those crazy thoughts of how the future of this earth is doomed, and instead of take yourself back to the present where you realize, oh my God, I love life. This is really nice.
Yeah, I think we live in an age where we're fortunate in that we have many sources of information, right? So information is a wonderful thing, and we can make profound decisions based on being very well informed. So there's a sense of, it's great that we have many of those opportunities at our fingertips, but I think that it goes back to self-awareness and knowing exactly where your limits exist, right? There's a time and a place to be educated and to learn and to really be mindful about the political climate and how we can make an impact in those ways, getting out to vote, and those are all very important things. But then we also need to balance that with other aspects of our lives, right? You all are college students. There are very few people that are busier than college students, right? You guys are in the midst of lots and lots and lots of rigor under normal circumstances. So again, I think that's where you really have to consider, what is your current occupation at hand, if you will. That's me, the occupational therapist speaking. But you do really need to be mindful of when, you've had limits for certain things like TV broadcasting, and you need to switch gears.
Yeah, it's channeling those external messages that we're getting, constantly about all sorts of information. And I know Ainsley mentioned something about COVID-19 notifications. Ainsley, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to not only set boundaries for yourself, but for others as well, like how much, like the allotment of time you're going to allow them into your life. For example, like if they're sharing resources constantly about coronavirus, we hear about that every single day, and not that it's not important, but even saying things like, I'm glad you're really well informed, but I need a break right now to like process my own emotions and how I feel about that, because you shouldn't be overwhelmed by it. There is a difference between like being informed and being very overwhelmed. Or if you're setting boundaries of somebody you're going to see saying, I would love to see you, but could you quarantine for 2 weeks? Or if you're symptomatic, could you please not come over? Just making those verbal statements, letting them know what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, isn't the bottom line everyone's health and well-being, right? We're trying to, as humanity, right, foster everyone's protection and health and well-being as we move through these really tough times. And if there was ever a time where communication skills were really important, it would be now. And being able to express our needs and wants in ways that are well received and well accepted. I always tend to try and take the approach of again, gratitude and thanking people, like, thank you so much. I'm really appreciative for the information that you supplied for me. It's good to grow and to know and be informed, certainly. And now I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to step back from that. So, I can really hope that you appreciate sort of where I am in the moment. So yeah, it is important to set limits for sure. And again, self-awareness.
Absolutely.
That's something that I feel like I've actually improved on a lot over this whole quarantine situation. I've talked to Luke about it. I just feel like I've been able to get out of my sort of mental state of guilt and feeling like everyone is gonna hate me for me wanting to take time for myself. And I've kind of moved on, and I've decided that I am worth taking the time for. But I really only think that I would have gotten that with the Corona quarantine when I had to be with myself and I had to kind of figure it out. So I guess that's one thing to be grateful for, like Terri, you said in your gratitude journals.
Yeah, for sure. And self-advocacy is part of well-being, right? It's an important skill that we all need to have. I know one limit that I have recently set is with this pandemic. As I share with many of my students, both of my parents have cancer currently and have for a long time. And so I've had to make a lot of decisions based on trying to keep them as safe as possible. So wedding invitations, funerals, like these big events where social communities come together and it's really important. I have found myself saying no to many of these things and feeling sad, because certainly you want to celebrate with people and certainly you want to embrace people in their time of need. Those are hard decisions to make. But again, when you think about the health of others, like I'm trying to consider, my parents' health currently right now. Those are some tough decisions, but you're right. You do have to advocate for the things that you think are right and pursuing and keeping people safe.
Yeah, to go off your point, Terri, and also, to hear hear some of your thoughts on this, to go off Emma's point as well, is that I was actually having a conversation today with a E-Town student, and it was about how our generation was focused so much on items, so much on certain, like, the newest computer, the newest iPhone, all these tangible things. And what's crazy about it is that COVID-19 actually brought us closer to where past generations have had to sort of look for the intangible, the actual relationships with family members and things like that. And I was just going to ask you that, have you possibly seen in your students a change in this, our current generation? Have you seen possibly a change that we finally got a glimpse of what it was like before there was so much, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, because you can't see somebody person to person, that we had to realize that there's other things other than just items itself. I don't know if I'm trying to make a point there, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because I find that it's not only just with your generation, but even myself, more of your parents' generation. I have really, through all of this, sort of had a reset. And I've heard a lot of people talk about the reset, and a lot of people even my age who are talking about this reset. It's so easy to be constantly in a swirl of this busy, chaotic schedules and responsibilities and 12-hour days and and all of that, that again, when we came home in March and we started doing things from home, right? My son came home, for example, it did really, it reset me to think about sort of the simpler things in life, right? Family, spending time with family. And my family is really close. I have 2 sons and a husband, and my dog, Miss Molly Magoodle Doodle, who I love like the earth and the breath. But it really, you know, it slowed everybody down, and we spent a lot more time playing games and reading books and doing things as a family. I spent a lot more time looking out my window and noticing birds. I said to my husband, have there always been this many birds, or did I just not notice before? And he's like, Terri, I don't know that you noticed before. So again, it's really brought me back to like this whole idea of mindfulness and just being in every moment and appreciating every moment for the moment that it is. So I don't know. I think the same can be true. I've heard things from my students also about spending time with their families. And it's interesting though. I do worry about like the social isolation piece. I would be interested to hear how you guys are remedying that. I know family reunions have been done on Zoom, right? We have family fun night, or we have, I see my best girlfriends, we used to go out, you know, once a month and go out to dinner and have a nice time. And now all those meetings are over Zoom. So from a social standpoint, those relationships are definitely different. I'm curious how you guys are doing with all of that.
Yeah, it definitely looks different since I haven't seen any of my friends since March, but a lot of my friends and family have been doing things over Zoom. So even earlier, Cassie and I used to go get Chick-fil-A with each other all the time on campus. So we wanted to replicate that as much as we could. So we did the next best thing. We just both got Chick-fil-A at the same time, different time zones, Zoomed through it all, and tried to act like it was the closest thing that we could get to being on campus. So little things like that, just continuing game nights, like the same normalcy things that I would do on campus, just a little bit different of a format.
Yeah, I think it's a good time too to be more creative. Back to Lucas's question, I walked across campus the other night and I saw students out on these big blankets, you know, having dinner together. And I mean, I don't remember really seeing picnics on the lawn that frequently before, you know? And it was just really neat for me. Sometimes I like to take the long way through. I walk past the library on my way home, and you know, some people were sitting in the Adirondack chairs and they had their computers and they were working in isolation and really happy. Other students were at the bottom of the hill shouting at their friends who were in like the 3rd floor of a dorm. So it has been really fun to kind of see students being creative with how they do get together and make the most of the time.
Absolutely. I think that is a wonderful place to leave off at for today. But we want to thank you, Terri, and you, Emma, for joining us. Lucas and I really appreciate hearing what you guys had to say today. We're so thankful for all of your input. So yeah, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say that I'm inspired every day for all of the by all of the students at E-Town. Everyone has been so resilient and so kind and so steadfast in wearing masks and being really mindful and watching out for each other. And I've been really inspired and impressed by that. So I just want to take a minute to say thank you. You guys inspire me every day.
Thank you.
All right, signing off for today. Thank you guys so much. See ya.
Thank you.